Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Paul Mackay from Analogue Wonderland, and today I'm going to be talking to you about one of the newest emulsions that 35mm shooters have been able to use. That is Ortho 80 from Ilford. Came to the format in 2019, and today we're going to get to grips with what makes it so special. Whether you are new to film photography or a long-time analogue enthusiast, our channel covers all things film, from tips and tricks, film reviews to how-to videos. Subscribe now and keep those notifications turned on so that you never miss a beat. Happy shooting! Ilford Ortho Plus, ISO 80. So this was a new film in 2019, and the reason I'm doing air quotes is because I'm cool, and also because it was available in 4x5, i.e. sheet film, before then. But in 2019, Ilford decided to bring it in 35mm and 120, and were frankly overwhelmed by the support and the demand that it's seen in those formats since. Now, the reason that it was available in 4x5 for a long time before it ever made it to the smaller format is because of its background. So it's ISO 80 and it's orthochromatic. So let's go through this very quickly. We've done ortho before, but we'll review what orthochromatic means. In a world where we can, as human beings, see a certain light spectrum fairly equally that goes across the rainbow colours, a lot of black and white films, all that are panchromatic, Pan-F, HP5, Tri-X, T-Max, loads of films you know will be called panchromatic. This one is different in that it is orthochromatic, which means it cannot see red light. So if you showed it a rainbow, it would pick up light tones on everything apart from red, which would come out just dark. This has some benefits. Of course, for those of you who have lived and breathed the darkroom at any point in your life, you will know that you can use red lights in there when you're often developing prints. That's because prints are often orthochromatic, so they use light sources that don't need red. They expose through that, and then the red light allows you to still work in that environment. That's very different, obviously, to shooting film. But even still, this means that you can take a roll of Ortho Plus into a darkroom with a red light and pull it out of the canister to load it, or when you're then finished shooting, you can unload it and put it into a reel without needing perfect darkness, because as far as this film is concerned, as far as this emulsion is concerned, a red light may as well be no light at all. So that's a practical benefit of it. But it also affects how it picks up scenes and how it shoots. So we talked last week about Washi Z and the fact that it was very good for landscapes and differentiating different types of green. This film also has that benefit, but for a very different reason. It's not seeing any red, it's not therefore picking up any red, therefore it is entirely focused on green-blue spectrum of colour, and it can also therefore have greater differentiation simply by fact of it is focusing on a smaller section and therefore be able to see the difference in contrasts better. It'll pick up better tones. Now the difference versus Washi Z was a 400 film. It's also panchromatic, so it's a different reason that it can see so well in green, but ISO 400, whereas Ortho Plus is ISO 80, it needs a lot more light. So whereas Washi Z, we talked about beautiful for going on terrible weather, very dark grey, miserable, Washi Z would still look great. Ortho 80 would struggle on those kind of days because it needs enough light to be able to see a scene, and it obviously needs enough green, blue light in particular to be able to see a scene. If there's any redness, that doesn't contribute to its eye at all. Its history is it was a very useful copy film. So copy film is when you have a negative and you need to duplicate it. So you then put it on top of something else, expose it with light, and then that becomes a negative of a negative, positive, to then go away and produce more negatives of, etc, etc. Very useful and used all the time in cinema and movie making to create the films that would then be projected all over the world in the early 20th century. But also with stills, very useful for copying documents, very useful for copying archival photographs that you want to, send someone a negative of a photograph. You don't want to actually send the negative, you can make a copy negative and send that out. Ortho 80 was used for all of that. And of course that gives another clue to some of its characteristics. Really fine grain, lovely detail, high resolving power, linked of course to the fact that it is low ISO, because we know low ISO films tend to have better resolution, better detail. High ISO films can be shot in the dark or in dark situations, but the give and take of that is that they cannot generally cope with as much detail. So high detail, won't see red light, really, really interesting photos. People love it for landscapes because of that, remove the red, therefore green, but on sunny days. When we talked to Ilford about this though, they also pointed out that one of the things that people have really embraced it for outside of landscape is portrait photography, particularly if you have light skin tones but freckles, if you play around with bright makeup, bright red lipstick, or very vibrant eyeshadow. What you will see on black and white is very different to what you would see if you use HP5, because reds become blacks. And even actually if you do a close-up to things like eyes that tend to have red tones, especially with Caucasian skin, then that will give you a very different look than if you shot it with a traditional panchromatic film. So you can play around with different portraits of folks with different skin tones and see how their skin reacts differently to this. It won't be the same because of how much red gets absorbed or not. Or you take it back to where it is traditionally thought of as being very strong, which is of course landscapes. Knowing that if you home develop, also extra benefit of this orthochromatism, you can open it all up under a red safe light and it will be absolutely fine, which is a lovely party trick to play on somebody who doesn't know what you're doing to freak them out. You just go vroom. Absolutely safe. All your films are fine. Don't do it by accident with the wrong film. That would be a disaster. The other benefit to that element of being able to do it under a red safe light is of course if you're learning or if you're teaching someone about loading a film, unloading a film, playing with reels, this is a great one to do because you don't need a changing bag, you don't need pitch blackness. You can teach someone, show someone how it goes without it being a practice film. That's also very helpful. And then the other thing to think about with the rating, this is something that Michelle over at Ilford pointed out. So it's ISO 80, it's DX-coded ISO 80 on the assumption that it'll be shot outside predominantly. If you shoot it under tungsten light, because tungsten has a different color spectrum to natural light, often more reds, then you should really shoot this at ISO 40, accounting for that specific loss of overall light for this film. So expose it at ISO 40. If you're going to be inside, it will need more tungsten light to get the same levels of exposure as it would do outdoors, where light is naturally a bit more green, a bit more blue, a bit more naturally balanced for this type of film. So there we go. So Wonderboxes, another film for a walkabout, another film for a nature walk, but sunny days rather than washy Zeds, cloudy days, or turn up the portraiture in your life. Shoot some folks super close up, get to know someone's face under a slightly different type of emulsion, and I'm sure you'll get some fantastic results. If you've shot this before, please let us know what you thought of it, what you would learn from it. If you shot this on other ortho films, there are a few other ortho films out there, then let us know whether you saw anything different specifically about Ilford's Ortho. Otherwise, have a wonderful amount of fun with an unique film that doesn't see red, has brilliant detail, brilliant resolution, and can make everyday things that slightly different.